Linda Sessions here, and this recording is for week 3 of business communications. How important is communications in the world of business today? It is very important, and during week 2, we looked at how you can communicate across differences, how you can communicate with teams. I know all of us have had experience with teams and working in a team, working as a group. How do you get the information across to everybody? How do you communicate when you have such a large group of people that you're trying to get one message to? And all you have to do is open up a newspaper, a news magazine, or get on the internet today and look at the information that is out there, and you realize how important proper communication is. Can't get away from it. But not only nonverbal communication, verbal communication, but also written communication. So last week you learned a little bit about some nonverbal communication. This week, we're going to be looking at written communication. So let's dive in to week 3 of business communication. And we have our writing skills. So the discussion board this week, let me pull it up, I don't remember what it's about. It's all about business messaging systems. There's a lot of different ones. You know, you're talking about emailing, Teams, phone calls. Does anybody else remember the phone trees? Had those when my kids were in school. I had 2 people I was responsible for calling if something happened, and then they were responsible for 2 people. So I would get the message from 2 different people, and hopefully it was the same message, right? So, you only have to choose 2 of these prompts. You don't have to do all 5 of them. Choose 2 of them and talk about how important your communication system is when you are trying to facilitate communication within organizations. Okay? How do the different messaging systems enhance collaboration? I know where I work at WSU Tech, we have Teams, and Teams is great if you want to get with somebody right away, if they're on their computer, if they are there, if they're available. It's great. Sometimes you just need to use email, but hey, sometimes you just need to pick up the phone and call somebody, right? Security concerns. It's a big deal with a lot of corporations. How do you deal with security concerns? So, dependence on technology. What do you do if your phone systems goes down? Our phone systems at work are all based around the computer. So if our computer goes down, we don't have a phone system. How does that affect our day-to-day work? So look at these, and you only need, again, to choose 2 of them. You don't have to answer all 5 of them. So I'm going to come back here to the module. That is the 3rd discussion board. And remember, in order to get those full 15 points, you have to post, and then you have to respond to at least 1 other person. Now this week, we've got chapters, we're looking at chapters 4 and chapter 5. But the very first one is, why does writing and designing matter to me? There are 3 questions here. It's worth 3 points. You want to read through the scenario and then respond to the question. And it's all about, why does writing and designing matter to me? And it gives you an overview of what to expect in chapter 4 and chapter 5. In chapter 4, you are looking at writing and designing. So if I come in here to the chapter, how important is it? Oh, sorry. I forgot I'm in student view and I can't go into the textbook in student view. But how important is it when you're writing something in business communications? How important is it that you pay attention to designing it? So in chapter 4, you're going to be looking at your audience. And that's one thing that I always try to think about when I'm even making these videos. I know that my audience with the students, I've got a wide range of students. Some of you are professionals. You have been working. You're coming back to get a degree. Some of you are fresh out of high school. You don't have that business experience. And so I try to make sure that I give you enough detail for those of you who are brand new to this business communication world, but also make it interesting enough that those of you who have been in the world of business for a while, that you're maybe looking at things and thinking about things a little differently, from a different point of view, a different perspective, or through a different lens, if you will. But one thing you definitely need to do when you're designing what you're writing about is the audience and who it is going to. I mean, there are times I am writing an email and I go back through it and I'm thinking, ooh, I really need to make this a little more professional, because I tend to let my personality come through. That's why I like doing these weekly videos, because when you see my background, you see a little bit more of me. Now, if I was doing this video for my colleagues, I would bring down my green screen and have a more professional background. But I want, for the purpose of this video, I want you to feel like you can reach out to me if you have questions. And so I feel like if you learn a little bit more about me, you can do that. So I'm thinking about my audience even as I'm making this video, but you have to do the same thing when you're writing. Who's the audience? Do they understand these big, long terminology, this different terminology, or do I need to explain what this word means? Are they going to understand what I'm talking about? There's planning. What's your purpose for the email? Do you need to even have, not even the email, but do you need the letter? Would a quick phone call work instead? Think about your business writing. We're looking at the process in chapter 4. So who's your audience? What's the purpose of your communication? You're going to draft it. Then you're going to go back, relook at it again, check it for errors, and you're going to design it. We're going to talk about designing, different designing principles. I know one of our students here in our class is a digital marketing major, and she's the web design, document design. That is a big, huge part of digital marketing. How does it look to other people? And who is your market? It's a big, huge part when it comes to digital marketing, and so it's something that you really need to think about. But it's also something you need to think about no matter what business you're in. What's the audience? If I'm doing something for a school, a K-8 school or an elementary school, it is going to look different than if I'm sending something out to a college. You see where the designing can make a difference? Who is it going to? So there's some designing principles to look at. Proofreading is very important. There's some tips in here on that. And then again, here's a chapter review. The reviews are very good in this textbook. Please take the time to review the textbook as you go into the quizzes. I know for a lot of you, it's real tempting just to go right to the quizzes and not even look at the textbook. You just jump right into the multiple choice quizzes. But if you take at least 20, 30 minutes to look through the chapters, look through these different ideas in the chapters, you're going to understand more, you're going to learn more, and when it comes time next week for the timed midterm exam, you're going to do a little bit better on it. So you got your chapter closing. There's some different assignments down here. Now, you don't have to do any of these if you want to. If you look through them and you're like, hey, I'd kind of like to look at some of these, reach out to me. I'm more than willing to work with you, but you don't have to do any of these for this class. So if I come back to the module here, if I click on the next, you'll see that, let's go back just to the modules here. The next item is the flashcards, which is going to explain the terminology we were just talking about for the chapter. And then you have your quizzes. You've got your Learn It, which is worth 17 points. Then you have Apply It. Now, Apply It is worth 34 points. I am more interested in, can you apply those principles that you've learned? So it's going to give you a scenario, and then you have to choose which answer is the best response to the scenario. And then there's a practice quiz, which is going to help you get ready for that midterm that's coming up next week. Now, Chapter 5, let's come in here and look at the Chapter 5 text. Chapter 5 goes a little bit more into improving your actual writing style. So everybody has a different writing style. What's yours? My writing style tends to be a little bit more laid back than a lot of my colleagues, and that just fits my personality. But I need to make sure that I write clearly, that I write professionally, I write concisely. And so this chapter is going to give you some tips on how to do that. How can you develop your own writing style? So how can you write effective sentences? Now, we went through some of this in the very first chapter, the very first week when you looked at the mechanics of grammar. We looked at all of that. So you're going to be revisiting some of this. What is an active sentence? What's a passive voice? Women tend to write more in a passive voice style than men do. Just a fact. But you can learn to write more actively. So developing logical paragraphs, my husband would tell you that's probably one of my weakest links, is being logical in my writing. So I always try to watch, be concise, watch my paragraph length, try not to be too wordy, or make sure I'm explaining it. Again, it goes back to Chapter 4. Who's my audience? How much in detail do I need to go? Do I need to go into a lot of background, or do they already know it? So creating your tone. It is important to find your own conversational voice, especially if like maybe you want to start doing a blogging or having your own website, having your own business. What type of style is your writing going to be for yourself? Being confident, being courteous, being sincere, all of this stuff. What is the appropriate tone for your writing? The chapter closing. Again, you don't need to do any of these assignments here in this particular chapter, but I'm going to get to where you will be using some of those skills in assignment here in just a second. After you've looked through and reviewed Chapter 5, here's the flashcards, which go into the terminology that's used in Chapter 5. Then you have your Learn It quiz, which is 14 points, your Apply It quiz, 29 points, and then finally your practice quiz, which is 15 points. Now, these Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 is very, very important. So please take the time to go over and look at these chapters, because in coming up in Chapter 6, you are going to be using some of these skills in the project. You're going to be writing some information, writing a report, and looking at some different messages, and that information is coming up in Chapter 6. So you will be using some of this information, so make sure you pay attention to it. Next week's going to be the midterm exam, so you're going to be, again, revisiting some of this next week. But for week 3, this is what you're going to be looking at, Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. I am here if you have any questions. Reach out, and hopefully you learn a little bit more about your own personal writing style and are able to develop a little bit more so you can put your personality and do it in a professional and courteous way. So have a good week. Watch the due dates. And if everything has been graded and reviewed from week 1, if you're not passing the class, you should have received a text message from me, and you can reply with the text message, or if you use the inbox in Canvas and send me a message there if you have any questions about your grades, please do so. Reach out and ask me. I'm more than willing to do a Zoom meeting if anybody has any questions about the class, or if there's just something that you want to discuss. If anybody wants to get together and do a group meeting, I'm available pretty much any day in the afternoons, any evening except Wednesdays and Friday. Wednesday I have a standing meeting, and then Friday's date night with my husband. But if anybody wants to get together and do a group discussion on any of these topics, let me know and we can see what we can arrange. So in the meantime, have a great week, and I'll see you later. Bye.